Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and are having a flare-free day. Today's video is a bit more of a personal chat, friend-to-friend chat, around something that has really impacted me in my personal journey with endometriosis and motherhood. A lot of videos on my channel are more like in-depth, informative, educational videos when it comes to endometriosis and how it impacts us, but sometimes there is aspects of my life that I feel like I would love to be open about and share openly, because not only is it more of like a therapeutic method for me to talk openly about my experiences and my journey with things, I also feel like it makes others feel less alone. Sometimes people don't see the invisible struggles that people actually go through, and I feel like talking to a lot of individuals, both friends and family and everyone in between, I feel like a lot of us have experienced at least some aspects of depression and anxiety when it comes to our journeys, regardless of if you suffer with a chronic condition or not. So I thought that I would open up about my journey with postpartum depression and anxiety. I feel like I want to open up about this, even though I don't even know the approach I want to take yet. I'm just kind of like talking openly right now. But when I first had my endometriosis diagnosis, I felt really alone and isolated. And I found that because no one talked about it growing up, I just felt just alone and different, and just basically alone in the struggle that I experienced. And so when people started to open up about their experience with endometriosis, I felt kind of a weight off my shoulders. I didn't feel as alone or isolated. I think the same is true when it comes to motherhood and chronic conditions and depression and anxiety that trickles in. And I just find that the more we talk about it and the more open we are, the less likely we are to feel alone in it. And I hope that's the case, and that's why I make these types of videos right now. But yeah, I just wanted to dive in and just kind of give insight into what I've gone through and how I'm kind of dealing with it day by day. So I do suffer with endometriosis. I've suffered with it, the pain associated with endo since high school. My periods growing up were not super painful in the sense of endometriosis flares until high school. I had my first flare up in grade 10. It was excruciatingly painful in the middle of my high school hallway. And since that kind of moment, I found that my sense of anxiety and depression really started in adolescence and high school. And so I want to preface this video by saying that I'm like predisposed, I guess, to feeling anxious and depressed throughout my life. So going into motherhood, I always kind of thought in the back of my mind that I might be impacted by depression and anxiety. So I kind of knew that that might be impacting my journey. And when it comes to endometriosis, there are facts and figures around people who have endometriosis and other chronic conditions have a higher likelihood and a higher correlation with feeling depressed and anxious. And whether that's related to constant chronic pain that they feel on a daily basis, the constant gaslighting and the feeling of not being believed for your own pain and experiences can be a really heavy toll to take mentally. The fact of infertility and how it can impact people and their endometriosis journey. And I want to be careful too, because although I have endometriosis, I was fortunate to become pregnant and have a daughter, and I am so grateful for that experience. And I don't want to come on here and show that I'm like complaining about that experience, because I suffered with anxiety and depression when people don't even get to the stage of having a child because of infertility and stuff caused by endo. So I do want to be sensitive to that fact, that I do feel extremely blessed and like honored to be a mom while living with endometriosis, because I know that's not everyone's experience. Prior to getting pregnant as well, and living with anxiety and depression throughout my adolescence and young adulthood, I was put on a progesterone dominant pill called Vizan, and I have a video about it that I'll link up here. But basically that experience was not great for my mental health. It did cause changes with the way that I felt and thought about things. And so it really exacerbated my depression and anxiety. And so again, basically there are triggers in my life that have caused anxiety and depression to like trickle in. And so during motherhood, we moved to a new place. It was really remote and rural, and we're still here, but I'm like creating more of a community for myself, but I felt really alone and isolated at the beginning journey where I was pregnant. And I think that's where I initially felt a bit of depression sink in and anxiety sinking in. My family is in Toronto, so they lived further away than where I currently live. And I just didn't feel like I had a unit around me. I had support, of course, from Nick and his family, but I just didn't feel as grounded as I feel like I'm currently starting to feel. And so I think with anyone's motherhood journey, there comes a point where there are thoughts of anxiety about what the future will look like. Will I be a good mom? You know, will our relationship change? Is there things that are going to be impacting my life now that I won't get back? What is my identity? There are so many thoughts that came to the forefront, and I just felt very overwhelmed. I think when it comes to mothers and going through like the birthing process and pregnancy journey, I, as a mother, just felt lost in the system. I didn't feel like people were making sure that like I was okay in the journey. And I'm not talking about friends and family. I'm more talking about like the medical system on checking in, making sure that like I have the supports and resources that I need to like get through it. And I'm emotional now because I look back on that version of myself and how really lonely it was and how really like isolating and just unsupportive the medical system was. And I think again that was a bit of a trigger because living with endo, I already had a weird disjointed relationship with the medical system. I always felt like gaslit and not really believed for the pain and experiences. Again, I had gone through so many doctors over the course of 11 years to finally get a name to my pain, which was endometriosis. So I think it was kind of a trigger in that sense of, okay, it's happening again. I'm not feeling supported. I'm not feeling seen. I'm feeling like a little ghost housing this cute being. And I just feel like, I just didn't feel like the society that I lived in supported mothers in that regard. And I hope we're getting better, but I'm 15 months out and that was my experience. So I don't know if anyone else had a similar experience, but when I gave birth, it was a very positive birthing experience. I was really nervous about my endo and the pain and discomfort that I would feel during the birthing process, the birthing day. And obviously it was painful, but I have a video about that too, describing just how positive of an experience it was. And after giving birth, I just felt really connected to my daughter. Like it was an immediate, like, this is my purpose. Like she is my life. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I just felt like, okay, I felt like I missed the depression and anxiety train. I was like, okay, it's not part of this chapter in my life. Like motherhood maybe was the time and place where anxiety and depression was like, no, like you got this, like you've dealt with us in the past. And that was because there are different chapters that you needed to come across us. But motherhood, we're just gonna like let you be because you already had like a hard time leading up to the birth and like your daughter here now, it's your time to shine. And that's kind of like my mindset. I was like, okay, I feel good. Like I'm struggling a bit with like breastfeeding, and that was a whole other thing. And like there were aspects that were obviously very challenging when it came to starting my motherhood journey of like a loss of identity, that sense of who am I, like where did M go in all of this, just a loss of that sense of identity. And I think that's what I struggled with a lot. But over the course of like going to appointments and things for my daughter, I would have ad hoc discussions with her doctors, just saying like, how are you doing as a parent and as a mom? And I kind of felt like taken aback by that question because I was like, oh, like, okay, you're asking me, but I'm like, I'm good. And I think that was my like general response because part of me was like, I want to speed up this appointment because she's coming to her nap or she's really fussy right now. And I could get into it with you of like how I feel a little lost on certain aspects of like breastfeeding or my identity and stuff, but we'll just leave it. Like, I'm feeling good. Like, oh yeah, feeling great. Like some days are hard, but like, I think that's normal. And I would just continue on with my day. And I think like looking back, and if you're in the same boat or coming up to, you know, giving birth or whatever you're going through, I would just say like, don't be afraid to take up time to talk about what you're going through and like actually think about your emotions and like how you're actually feeling, instead of saying, okay, I'm good, like I'm totally good, like I got this, and suffer alone with it. Because if you're the same type of person as I am, I'm like, I can deal with it on my own. I've dealt with so many other things in my life alone with the anxiety and depression piece. Like I kind of go into my own self, or like my own little hermit life, and I deal with the tumultuous journey of like depression and anxiety and like that tornado of emotion that comes with it. And I come out on the other side, and people may not know that I went through that, but I'm like, I feel better talking about it on the other side. Whereas I look back now, and like the older I get, and like the advice I want to provide in this video is that don't wait until you're on the other side to talk openly about what you're going through. That person is reaching out to like genuinely ask, like, how are you doing? And I think if I like opened up earlier, I may have gotten resources ahead of time before like it got a little bit worse. So I just feel like just open up about how you're feeling. And so in those moments, again, I would just say like, I'm fine, and continue on with my routine of trying to figure out my motherhood journey, my routines with her, and just kind of get a sense of like how this would work throughout the next coming months, of like her routines, her naps, her feeding schedules, and everything in between. Like I felt completely connected to my daughter. Like I know that some individuals with postpartum depression don't feel that initial connection with their child. They feel not connected at all. They don't feel that immediate bond, and that's okay too. And sometimes that takes time. And again, there's doctors out there to like talk about that experience. But for me, I was like, it doesn't feel like the quote unquote normal postpartum depression description, because I'm super connected to my child. So whatever I'm feeling internally is just probably like overwhelm because of this new whole life change and whole new chapter. But over the course of several months, I came to realize that my sense of lowness, my sense of just feeling sad and low and melancholic just increased. I still was showing up for my daughter and smiling and like doing all the baby groups and going to city play groups and talking to people generally. And I think that's the second thing, is that I had a smile on my face and like that positive energy every time I met someone external to me in my household. So like if I was meeting with like Nick's family, or like a play group date, or a friend over a FaceTime, I would be like, hey, like, how's it going? Oh my gosh, it's so good here. Like, oh yeah, like she's like doing amazing. And I would talk more about my daughter to avoid the discussion about myself and how I was feeling. And I think that's what I kind of want to put out there too, is that like, when it comes to anything in life, you don't know what people are going through, like internally or like outside of when you see them. They might have a smile on their face and they might seem like they have everything going for them. But if you know that they went through a huge life change, I think it is just so important to recognize that, like, always be kind, always show up and say like, you're doing amazing. Just be like positive around people. I feel like that negativity or the negative vibes that we put out to people sometimes, or the judgment that we pass, can be made quickly without knowing exactly what people are going through. And so if you know somebody in your life that's gone through something, like just check in, just like say like, I'm here for you if you need it. Because even though they show up with a smile, they may be going through something pretty challenging. And so that was my kind of external as well. Like I was still showing up on Instagram and on here talking about videos and making videos and trying to find a sense of purpose every day, because I was like, if I have a YouTube video to create, or if I have like an Instagram post, then I feel like I've kind of gotten out of like that lowness or that anxiety that I was feeling. And I would make that post, or I would talk on a reel or make a video, and I would get out of that flunk for a little bit of time, but then it would creep back in throughout the rest of the day. And that's when I started to realize like what I'm going through is probably anxiety and depression creeping in. And because I had dealt with it prior to my pregnancy journey, I noticed it and I recognized that it was creeping in and that it was anxiety and depression that was coming in. And so yes, I was nervous, but I knew that I had the tools and resources and that experience to like reach out for help. And so 10 months postpartum, like so post giving birth, like after she had arrived, I knew that I had to reach out and get support. I reached out to my doctor and just explained like what I was going through, what I was feeling. I was feeling low, like loss of identity, wasn't feeling like myself. I felt low and like just not myself. And you know when you don't feel like yourself. It's the same with endometriosis and chronic pain. You recognize that something was off. You recognize that there was a new pain or a symptom. You know your body best. And so when something doesn't feel right, I want to come on here and just say like, it's okay to reach out for help. And I know that we hear that all the time of like, it's okay to reach out for help. And it kind of like lays flat when you like get that message across of like, because we've just heard it all the time. And sometimes it doesn't make the impact that we want it to. But I hope like if you're watching this, that you just know that you're not alone and that there are resources out there to support you, because at the end of the day, like we are all so strong in our own way, but sometimes there's aspects of our lives where it's okay to not do it on your own. And it's okay to like grab the buoy that's being thrown out to you when you're in the middle of the ocean trying to tread water and just have a little break on your own self and your own body. Because what you're going through, regardless of if it's pregnancy, regardless of if it's related to your chronic illness, we all go through stages of our lives where we just are treading water and it gets exhausting. I do want to stress that sometimes when you hear about postpartum depression, we hear that it impacts individuals the first like month to 6 months, and then individuals kind of wean out of it because they feel like they have their routines in place. They feel like they're finding a sense of themselves again, and that's wonderful and amazing. And like, but sometimes postpartum depression can hit months after that 6-month time frame, which was my case. And that's why I was like, I guess I was confused as to why it took so long for me to like hit that threshold of, okay, I'm in postpartum depression land and anxiety land. And that was 10 months postpartum. Some individuals also feel depression and anxiety prior to giving birth, so prepartum depression. So just something to recognize too, that sometimes we only hear about like postpartum depression in the common traditional sense, but it can hit individuals in different ways. It can have tremendous impacts on individuals' lives. It can just really impact people in their journey. I feel like my motherhood journey, any person that's going through a chapter change, including motherhood, it's going to be challenging and it's going to feel isolating. But I feel like the icing on the cake for my journey was that I also dealt with a chronic condition that I had to deal with on the side. And endometriosis is unpredictable at the best of times. And if you have endometriosis, you know that you can't really plan around your endometriosis. It shows up unannounced and you have a flare up here and there. It doesn't matter what time, what you're doing. It just can sometimes happen out of the blue. And so on top of like my feelings of depression and anxiety around my loss of identity and just motherhood in general of it, you're just trying to figure it out. My chronic illness definitely played a factor in the way that I was feeling mentally. I think constant chronic pain can have a toll on anybody. I did have my flares return after giving birth. It wasn't right away, but I have experienced a couple of endometriosis flare-ups since giving birth. So mentally, that's hard to take because you're like, I'm already kind of in one major challenge, which is trying to figure out your motherhood journey and the impact that that has had at times. But you're also trying to figure out the relationship you have with your chronic illness that you've dealt with your whole life, basically. Part of my journey too with motherhood was that sometimes I felt inadequate as a mother with a chronic condition because Nick would have to step in or like take time off work. And I was so thankful that he was able to work remotely, that he was home. But like, I just was like lying down trying to figure out a flare up while he was with our daughter, and I could hear them laughing and playing. And I was just like, I wish I was present in that moment because I don't want to miss out on things. And I think that like exacerbated my sense of lowness and melancholy and sadness. My anxiety crept in a little bit too, because I think I was fearful of flares around the corner. So when I wasn't in an active flare up, but I was like at home with my daughter, or Nick was out at work, and I was like, oh, please don't have a flare up today because I'm on my own. Like, I can't, like, how am I supposed to deal with it? So I was also like in constant anxiety mode for like a flare to come up when it never did that day. And so I was in a constant state of like depression and anxiety that would like trickle in based on around my chronic illness. Sometimes journeys can be exactly how we plan them, and sometimes they can be exactly how we not plan them. And I just want to be like transparent on here too. Like, after I talked to my doctor, they did recognize and formally diagnose me with postpartum depression. I was put on medication, and I am doing really well on that medication, and I want to be transparent about that. I am taking like daily medication to support my journey, and that's in line with my doctor and their recommendations based on like what I'm going through and stuff. So if you're feeling any changes with your body, like, it's always important to talk to your doctor about starting new or changing medication. But that's where I'm at now, and I'm also taking therapy every other week. My therapist is wonderful and like focuses solely on like postpartum depression journeys. We've talked about prior to like motherhood, and we've gone all the way back to high school. So like, it's been a very open, raw experience, but it's also helped me realize like patterns for myself. I can kind of recognize that in a life chapter where I'm doing those past patterns, that, okay, I might experience a little bit of depression and anxiety creep in here. So therapy has been really beneficial for me, and I'm fortunate that my insurance covers parts of it. And so I recognize that that is a privilege that I hold, the same with having a doctor to get medication. I just wanted to come on here and be open about my journey, because sometimes I've been on here talking about other things and seeming like positive and energetic, but I want to say, like, what you see on social media is not always what you see on the day-to-day. I do deal with struggles and anxiety and depression throughout my life. I'm typically a happy person, but sometimes I do deal with like sadness, and that's something that I recognize about myself. And just reach out for help if you need it. And again, you're not alone, and chronic conditions can like really impact mental health and the way that we see ourselves. If you're dealing with a chronic condition right now, first and foremost, you are so worthy of support. You don't have to do all the work on your own. It may seem like you have to because you're the one dealing with the pain and discomfort every day. You don't need to get all the resources and answers on your own. So keep that in mind, that you're not alone, and there are people that can be out there to support you. If you're in your motherhood journey with a chronic illness, the one piece of advice I would give you is, and I'm still in the journey, try and be easy on yourself. You're doing the best that you can do. You're doing the best that you can do. And sometimes it may not seem like that. I have days where I'm like, I made her lunch, I made her breakfast from scratch. Like, we went to a play group, we like met up with the neighbors, we played with Cooper, she had a great nap, and like great fun in the bath. And then I go to bed and I'm like, wow, I was the worst mom today. Like, we're so hard on ourselves. And I think there's so much pressure in society in general around the expectations of mothers specifically. Yes, there is so much pressure on men too. Men can suffer with postpartum depression as well. So I want to be recognizing that as well. But there is a societal expectation for women to do it all and have it all sometimes. I know it's easier said than done, but please don't let society dictate in your own mind how well you're doing. You're doing amazing. I just hope in some instance that this video helps somebody out there just feel less alone, and to recognize that if there are any changes or any new symptoms or feelings that you're feeling, regardless of if it's postpartum wise or chronic illness wise, like, just reach out to your doctor or medical provider in your area to get support. You are so deserving of it. And that's a bit about me and my journey. And I hope that has provided a little bit more insight into, if you're following me on Instagram, why I haven't been posting as often. I just found it was a lot of pressure to like keep up with it. I've been enjoying YouTube a little bit more because I'm able to just talk openly and get more information out in a video format instead of like trying to type in everything that I want to in like one little caption. I want to make sure that the information that I'm providing is like beneficial to those and that they get every piece of information that I'm able to give them. And I just find that sometimes I can't get everything across on that platform. So that's just kind of where I've been. It's been, I know, maybe weird that I'm not on there as much anymore, but your chronic illness doesn't define you. Your depression and anxiety doesn't define you. Yes, it's part of my chapter book, and it kind of has always been part of my chapter book, to be honest. It's like part of the book, not like a chapter in the book, but that's okay. It doesn't define me. And yes, I can talk about it, and it's a puzzle piece to my life. But I know that I'm not alone. I know a lot of individuals at some level deal with anxiety and depression, and they're open about it. And I'm so thankful to everyone who has been open about their journeys, because it's encouraged me to be open about mine. And the more we raise awareness around taboo topics, which is chronic conditions, motherhood, postpartum depression, and anxiety, both for men and women, I think the more likely we are to realize that they're not so taboo and that it's okay to talk openly about it and that we're not the only ones dealing with it. So we're not the oddballs out. I'm gonna post some resources down below in the description box around if you're feeling not yourself, or if you're needing support around postpartum depression and anxiety, or even just want to reach out to a helpline when discussing mental health. Again, talk to your doctor or medical practitioner and friends and family just to inform them of what you're going through. Any type of support is required when you're going through really difficult stages. It's okay to go through it on your own for a certain time frame just to figure out, your balance on things, but don't do the whole journey on your own. You are so deserving of that support and love around you during that really hard time. So I hope those resources help you or somebody else that you know. And my next video is going to be, again, related to more endometriosis information and education, but I just wanted to come on here and be open about my postpartum journey and how you're not alone in it. I'm with you 100% of the way. Can't wait to talk to you on the next one. And in the meantime, I hope you have flare-free days ahead.